Looking for a budget-friendly deck that can hold its own? Check this one out. Hello there, my name is Donald, aka the Scruffy Looking Gamer, and today I want to talk about a deck that I think is a real sleeper in this meta. Nobody is really talking about this deck, but I think it can be a big contender if you just give it a shot. So this deck I'm calling Bestow a Gift, named after the card Bestow a Gift. And when this card came out, I was like, that art, top notch. I don't even care what the card does. Just look at that art. But we do care what the card does in this deck, and it is the theme around the deck. Move a damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. That is what our entire deck is going to be based around. So what we want to do is stack a bunch of characters that have a high toughness. We can put damage on them, and then we can transfer that damage over to our opponent. So starting in our 1-drops, Olaf, a 1/3, nothing more to him, but he can handle a couple damage on him before being banished. Our Mulan, she's a 2/3 for 1, but she enters play with 2 damage. Normally that is a downside, but in this deck we're going to turn it into an upside. Same with our 2-drop Mother Gothel, enters play with 3 damage, but she's a 3/4 for 2, great stats. 3-drop Beast, enters play with 4 damage, but he is a 2/6 that quests for 2, incredible stats. If we can get that damage off of them. Well, in this deck we can. These characters have been used to pretty good success in a Ruby Amber version where the Amber cards, you're just looking to heal the damage off your characters. This is kind of the same style as that deck, but instead of Amber, we're using Amethyst, and we're going to use our Amethyst cards to move that damage off the characters onto our opponent's characters. It is important to note that when you're playing something that says move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character, it gets around resist. So if your opponent has a character with resist 1, normally you would have to take 1 off of whatever damage you're doing to them, but because you're moving the damage counter, resist doesn't matter. They can't resist it being moved onto them. So anything with resist doesn't matter. We don't have to worry about that. It's also important to note that it says move damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. It doesn't have to be ours. So if they have a character that has 1 damage on it and they have something else that you want to move that damage to, then you can choose their character to move it to their character. So, I mean, for the most part, we're going to be moving it off of our characters, but that is an option if you need it. So the cards that we have to do that: Juju moves damage when he enters, Belle moves damage when she enters. We have this Belle that shifts, that moves damage when she enters. We have Madame Mim, just like all the other Madame Mims, whenever she enters play, you have to return something back to your hand. Not really a downside in this deck. We can return back our Juju or our Belle to our hand. That way we can play them again, more damage if we need to. So Madame Mim's ability is slightly different than the rest of the cards in the deck. She says at the start of your turn, you may move up to 2 damage, so you can move 1 or 2, but it has to be from this character. So Madame Mim has to have the damage on her to move it, instead of like all the other cards just say move it from whatever character you want. So how do we get damage on our Madame Mim to be able to move it? Well, cards like Teeth and Ambitions. This card is a great card back from set 2. Was played a lot back then, but has kind of fallen out of favor recently. Works great in a deck like this. We put 2 damage on our Madame Mim. She has 7 willpower. She doesn't care. So then we can move it with something else. And because we put 2 damage on our character, we're putting 2 damage on another character. So really this card just says, hey, put 4 damage on your opponent's character. Basically what it is in this deck. We've got a card here, probably never seen before, right? Friends on the Other Side. This card is still a strong card from set 1. Will continue to be a strong card. Draw 2 cards. Pretty simple. We like drawing cards. This is one of the only ways to draw cards in this deck, so we really kind of need this. Our other way to draw cards will be this Maleficent here. Whenever she quests, you can draw a card. And during your turn, whenever you draw a card, you can move a damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Hey, that's what we're trying to do, right? So as long as she's on the field at the start of our turn, you draw a card for the start of your turn, you can move a damage counter. You quest with Maleficent, you draw a card. You can move a damage counter. You then play Friends on the Other Side. You draw 2 cards, move 2 more damage counters. Get the idea? We're going to be moving a lot of damage. So all of our characters are well statted to be able to handle that damage on them. 6 willpower here, 5 willpower here, 7 willpower here. They're all going to be able to handle a bunch of damage. And that's important in this meta because there's a lot of steel decks out there. A lot of them are relying on cards like let Storm Rage on or Strength of a Raging Fire to do 2 damage, to do 3 damage to our characters. We kind of want them to. If they want to put 2 damage on one of our characters with Let the Storm Rage on, that's fine. We'll give it right back to them. We will bestow them a gift. So yeah, that's basically the idea of the deck. It's pretty straightforward. There's a couple things, though, that we need to talk about here. Amethyst Coil, new card from set 7. During your turn, whenever cards put in your inkwell, you can move a damage from chosen character to chosen opposing character. That's important because we might not have another way to move damage, but we're probably going to be inking for most of our turns, at least the first several. And this is the only uninkable card in the entire deck. So we have 56 other cards we can ink. We're probably going to have something to put in ink if we need to. And then the other kind of different card, new card from set 7 in this deck, is Mother Gothel. So whenever one of your characters challenges, you can move 1 damage from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Now it is important to note here that when you initiate the challenge, when you say this character is going to challenge this character, that is when this triggers. So it's not after the challenge happens and the damage is put on your character. You can't move the damage then after that. It has to be at the time of the challenge. So when you go to challenge, if any of your characters have damage on them, then you can move it. If you have no damage on any of your characters, you just can't move damage. You can't wait until after the damage happens and then move it. But let's say you're challenging something that has 3 total willpower. You can move, you initiate the challenge to it, you move 1 damage to it, and then you're challenging it with this Elsa, 5th Spirit. She does 2 damage to it, finishes it off. Normally she wouldn't have been able to do that, but because we moved a damage with Mother Gothel, we can. And Elsa's just a great card in this deck. Rush, she's evasive. When you play it, you can exert something, so even if they're not turning them sideways, you can turn it sideways for them. You are bestowing him that gift. So that's the deck. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and it rounds out at a total of $29.88. I think that's pretty budget in my book. And I think that this deck will really hold up against a lot of the big meta decks. Great against an aggro deck. They're going to have a lot of low toughness, low static characters. We'll just take all those out. Doesn't matter. It does pretty well against other mid-range style decks because a lot of the characters just don't have a lot of toughness on, or willpower, whatever you want to call it. They don't have a lot. There's high stats. So this is able to take stuff out. It will struggle against some of the control decks in some cases, but I think it does hold its own against control decks pretty well if you give it a shot. So that is the deck. If you want to check it out, let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear what you think about this deck. So if you like the content, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. I appreciate it. It'll help me keep making all these off-color decks for you that no one else is showing you, but I like to bring you something a little different, something a little spicy, spice up your day. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you next time.